Number 10, Do Not Disturb. Paula Andrea Ramos Molina was a 22-year-old Colombian forestry engineer. In September 2018, she was part of a team carrying out an assessment in a rural area in Caldas. She had no idea what she would be in for. Paula and 3 of her colleagues dislodged a beehive, and they were instantly under attack by a swarm of angry and aggressive bees. They tried their best to escape. Smartly, they split up into pairs in order to confuse the bees. But while Paula and one of her peers were running away, they fell off a cliff. Sadly, Paula's neck broke in the fall and she died pretty much instantly. Her colleague, whose name has not been revealed, suffered serious injuries, multiple bee stings, and was immediately taken to a hospital, where, thankfully, she survived. Now, these weren't any regular bees, they were killer bees, which are basically a hybrid of European bees and the larger and more threatening African bees. They're also known as Africanized bees. They were first introduced to Brazil in 1956 to increase honey production, but the very next year, 26 swarms escaped and the hybrid bees rapidly spread across South America. Oh, and they're highly venomous too. Here's another scary little fact. Since their introduction to Brazil in 1956, they've been responsible for the deaths of over 1,000 people and many more cows and horses. They're known to gather in swarms of around 40,000 bees, and they don't mind chasing people, as we just learned. Number 9, Bees vs. Lawnmower. And now let's talk about Thomas Hicks. Thomas was a 70-year-old man living in Dallas, Texas. One morning in April 2021, he was calmly mowing his lawn when he got viciously attacked by a swarm of bees. The bees repeatedly stung him as he tried to escape, and he even managed to make it back inside his home, but the bees followed him. Firefighters soon arrived at the scene and they were also attacked by the bees. The rescuers managed to defuse the situation and the medics immediately started giving medical care to the elderly man, but to no avail. Thomas went into cardiac arrest and passed away. His wife Zoni Hicks was out grocery shopping, and when she got home, she saw her husband screaming and fully covered in bees. She was also stung repeatedly, but thankfully she received medical treatment and survived. Apparently there was a large tree near Thomas's house that housed multiple beehives and an estimated 60,000 bees. The insects got startled by the loud sound of the lawnmower and decided to attack the poor man. Later on, a beekeeper was brought onto the scene to subdue the bees and relocate them to a safer location. The insects inside the house were killed by spraying foam onto them. Number 8, Bee Burger. 20-year-old Kobe Freeman from Utah made a delicious hamburger for himself and was very excited to eat it. Let's just say he did not anticipate what was about to happen next. While he was eating his burger and minding his own business, he noticed a sharp pain on his tongue. He went to the bathroom, and when he opened his mouth, he saw a bee sitting on his tongue. Kobe actually filmed the moment his tongue began to swell after the attack and asked his followers for help. The somewhat disturbing clip went viral on TikTok and received over 5.3 million views. His tongue was so swollen that he couldn't even fit it back into his mouth, and his speech was altered as well. As we all know, everyone on the internet is an expert. The video had over 11,000 comments, with users offering witty and funny solutions to his unique problem. Even singer Jason Derulo commented on the clip and asked Kobe to call 911 instead of asking TikTok for help, which is not a bad idea. Kobe later commented on the video and updated his followers on the situation. Apparently, he was completely healthy and his tongue had started to heal fairly quickly. Here's a pro tip, guys. If you're ever attacked by a bee, please get expert help as soon as possible, instead of recording and uploading the moment. Number 7, Suspended in Midair. In Austin, Texas, 53-year-old Franco Galvan Martinez was working as a landscape lighting technician. On May 19, 2022, he was just doing his job when he met an unfortunate end. He was up in a backyard tree suspended by a harness and accidentally disturbed a beehive. The bees swarmed and immediately attacked the dude, who was just trying to do his job. He panicked and tried to swat away the bees and accidentally kicked away the ladder. Galvan remained suspended in mid-air by the harness as the insects repeatedly stung him. Apparently, the hive was so huge that thousands of bees covered him from head to toe almost instantly. 2 of Galvan's co-workers tried to help him out, but they were also stung. The neighborhood was terrified as the men screamed as loud as they could. Firefighters arrived at the scene and used a hose to blast away the bees and reach the unlucky man. Sadly, he did not make it and passed away. His co-workers, however, got treatment and made it out of the situation without any major injuries. Galvan lived in Sagan and was married with 2 kids. He even had grandchildren. His friends said that he was a very joyful man who had always lived his life to the fullest and tried to help people around him in every way. What an unfortunate way to go. Number 6, massive beehive. The next horrifying story comes from the town of Morona, Arizona. In July 2021, a group of people accidentally disturbed a beehive in their backyard and things went very, very wrong. The beehive they disturbed weighed around 100 pounds or just about 45 kilograms. The bees got angry and viciously attacked everyone at the scene. 3 of the people were stung hundreds of times as they desperately tried to get away. A rescue team soon arrived, but the bees weren't afraid of them either. The 3 individuals from the team were also stung multiple times. The victims were immediately taken to the nearest hospital where they received medical treatment. Sadly, though, one of them, a man, did not make it. His identity has not been disclosed, but authorities said he was pronounced dead as soon as he reached the hospital. 2 of the other victims were treated and released after a while. One brave firefighter was also stung around 60 times, but thankfully he received treatment and soon walked out of the hospital completely healthy. Bee handlers tried their best to clear away the massive nest. Most of the bees were killed and the hive was eventually removed, but there were still some bees lingering in the neighborhood. The police department urged residents to be very careful while in the area because some of the bees were still around and they were out for blood. Would you rather get stung by a bee or bitten by a spider? Tell us which one will be worse in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5, modern day miracle. In northwest Arizona, an unidentified man disturbed a huge hive in the backyard of his home in June 2015, and obviously, the bees did not take kindly to that at all. Tens of thousands of enraged bees attacked the poor man while he screamed, ran, and did everything in his power to get away from them. He managed to make it to his vehicle and got help from a couple of passersby who also ended up getting attacked. A beekeeper called onto the scene was stung around 23 times as well. According to reports, the man who was originally attacked wasn't just stung by 1 bee or 10 bees or even 100 bees. He was stung over 1,000 times by tens of thousands of those terrifying insects. But guess what? He was taken to the hospital where he received medical treatment and was soon in stable condition. If that isn't a modern day miracle, we don't know what is. Authorities who arrived at the scene said that the amount of bees in the shed was unbelievably staggering. They had never seen anything like it before and expressed that it was like something you'd see in the movies. They also urged locals to be very, very careful in the upcoming days. They were told to keep their pets indoors, drive with their windows closed, and avoid walking near their house. Number 4, alone on the farm. In July 2018, an 81-year-old farmer named Thomas Mizell from Liberty County, Texas, was clearing land for a fence line on his property. Soon, he was attacked by a massive number of angry bees. He was all alone and he didn't have a cell phone on him either. The old man stumbled and ran towards a nearby pond that was about 200 yards or just over 180 meters away. The whole time, hundreds of bees continued to sting him repeatedly. He had lunch plans with his wife Mary and son Joey later that day, but Mary could sense that something was wrong and she left home early to go find him. Mizell was in severe pain as his family rushed him to the hospital where the stingers were immediately removed by the nurses. According to his daughter, Mizell had more than 135 stings on his head alone. Despite the attack, the old man was in high spirits and joked that he got a new hairdo. He then said that it's a miracle that he's still alive. And we agree, it definitely was a miracle. And according to doctors, if his family had arrived even a few moments later than they did, Mizell would not have made it. Number 3, 500 times. This next story comes all the way from southeast Brazil. In March 2017, an 84-year-old woman named Divina Ambrosia de Jesus was collecting firewood by a lake. She inadvertently disturbed a beehive hidden in the bushes near the water and was attacked by a furious swarm of deadly bees. Firefighters and other rescuers called to the scene found the woman covered by an entire army of insects. To scare off the horde, they desperately set fire to a blanket, creating clouds of smoke. It took 30 whole minutes before emergency workers could disperse the dangerous, buzzing creatures and rescue the poor old woman. An eyewitness said it was the most horrific thing he had ever seen, and it was like a terrible nightmare. She was taken to the hospital, but unfortunately she died just a day later. The doctor who attended her said the victim was unconscious when she arrived, and her body was covered with around 500 stings. It was unclear whether the elderly woman was allergic to bee venom or not, but the sheer volume of stings was enough to send her body into shock. Her body just couldn't resist such a lethal attack to her systems, and despite the best efforts of the doctors, she just couldn't survive. Number 2, flower show gone wrong. On August 15, 2015, parents of 7-year-old Vaishnavi took their daughter to a nearby flower show in South Bangalore, India. Around 12 p.m., Vaishnavi was playing near a tree, and all of a sudden she started screaming. Her father quickly rushed to the scene and found that his little daughter had been attacked by a huge swarm of bees. He tried to cover his daughter to protect her, and while doing so, he too was stung. The father and daughter could not run away because hundreds of insects were surrounding them from everywhere. Vaishnavi's mother started yelling and asked the passersby for help, who rushed to the scene and managed to shoo away the bees. The little girl was quickly taken to a hospital where she was treated in an intensive care unit. The parents were told that Vaishnavi had been stung by too many bees and was in critical condition. Tragically, she didn't respond to the treatment and passed away. Her parents were overcome with grief and didn't know what to do after this terrible incident. They revealed that it was Vaishnavi's wish to go to the flower show, as many of her friends were also going. No one knew that it would be the last day of her life. Number 1, an allergic reaction. Sometimes even a single bee can be super dangerous. A Montgomery County police officer named Ryan Allen was stung by a bee on October 14, 2021. What followed was incredibly tragic. He went into anaphylactic shock despite having no history of being allergic to bee stings. Ryan was clinically dead for 20 minutes before being resuscitated by EMTs. The lack of oxygen during this time period led to a brain injury. Simply put, the oxygen deprivation caused his brain cells to die. He then spent 7 weeks in intensive care and was even in a coma during 4 of them. Even when he returned home, he needed 24-hour nursing care and wasn't really fully conscious at any point. His wife, Whitney Allen, even set up a GoFundMe page because the treatment was getting really expensive. Sadly, in March 2022, doctors told her that he was not going to be able to recover in any meaningful way, and a month later, he passed away at the age of 35. Ryan joined the Hatboro Police Force in 2013 and was a member of the County Drug Task Force. He was also an expert canine handler who helped found the department's canine unit. He was well loved and respected and would often be seen walking around with his beloved dog Louie. Whitney made an emotional post about her husband's death and said that she was going to miss him until the end of her days. She then thanked him for the 10 wonderful and magical years that they spent together. She'd promised that she'd raise their children to be men that he'd be proud of. She ended the post by asking her husband to watch over them. Thanks for watching. Which of these bee attacks did you find the most horrifying? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on the Bad Badger.